The player has just completed 2 combat-heavy levels, so we wanted to slow things down once they got inside. These early levels were designed as a pacing change, allowing players to explore the layout of Nova Prospekt's interiors. Along the way, we began to introduce the turret gameplay, first as an enemy to the player, and later as a tool they could use. Much of this level was built by reusing prototypes and art spaces created earlier in the project, when we were focused on shaping the look of Nova Prospekt.
Lacerations detected.
Turrets. Turrets were a useful design tool when the player had bug bait, as they could completely prevent antlions from approaching them head-on. This allowed us to create setups where the player couldn't just throw bug bait to proceed. They needed to circle around and clear the turrets so their antlions could follow. It didn't hurt that watching antlions get mowed down by turret fire was a great visual too.
Nova Prospekt process. Like Ravenholm, Nova Prospekt was initially designed with significantly different gameplay than what ultimately shipped. The first version focused on player versus combine soldier combat, with no involvement of antlions. Unlike other areas of the game where gameplay and art evolved together, Nova Prospekt received a large art push early on. This produced a set of reusable, polished sections of level geometry with art already applied. Assembling Nova Prospekt from these pieces worked well, as the prison's layout was naturally repetitive. And then later, when we returned with antlions and bug bait, we had to repurpose the geometry to fit the new gameplay.
Attention Nova Prospekt internal containment team. Deservice all political conscripts in Block A7. Prohibit external contact.
Antlion. Having an endlessly respawning Antlion army attacking turrets and soldiers meant we had to spend time figuring out the player's role in Nova Prospekt's combat. The player had already faced plenty of Combine soldiers, so we decided to make combat here feel more like a puzzle and a spectacle instead of a combat challenge. With that in mind, we created setups that remained in a steady state until the player intervened. By directly killing enemies, the player could tip the balance in favor of the Antlions, but we wanted to make bug bait usage especially rewarding. In many scenarios, when the player threw bug bait onto enemies, we activated additional Antlion spawners, unleashing a rapid rush of new Antlions into the fight. The resulting carnage was the reward that made bug bait satisfying to use.
Ragdoll Vortigaunt. There's a lot of pain to see in this dead Vortigaunt, pain of our level designers. At the time, our development tools didn't allow us to directly pose a ragdoll, which is to say, when an NPC dies and it systemically ragdolls to the ground, we didn't have any control over what pose it ended up in. If we'd had some animator time, they could have given us a single frame animation in roughly the pose we wanted, but we were late and our small animation team was already overloaded. So a level designer positioned the Vortigaunt above the chair, told it to die as the level loaded, and waited to see what pose the ragdoll settled into. Then the designer moved the Vortigaunt slightly and tried again. We can't remember exactly how many attempts it took, but it was way, way more than you'd think.
Laser mines. We really enjoyed bringing these laser trip mines into Nova Prospekt. They were a weapon from Half-Life 1 we hadn't managed to include in Half-Life 2, but at least they found a place as a puzzle element. We liked how they served as a kind of personal morality test when the player had an Antlion army. Some players immediately threw bug bait past the trip mines, sending Antlion bodies at the problem, while others had their little buddies back until they'd safely removed the trip mines with other tools. We didn't judge.
Contact lost in Block C2. Deploy. Reinforce. Intercept.
Vital signs critical. Seek medical attention.
Prospekt lost in Block 2. Deploy. Reinforce. Intercept in Central Block 4.
D2 Prison 04. Throughout development, our artists created small vertical slices of environments, which we called art zoos. These zoos laid out how to use textures and props to create gameplay spaces that achieved our visual goals. However, when building the prison's gameplay track, the repetitive layout allowed us to use the art more directly. This map was initially built as the primary art zoo for Nova Prospekt, but after being used to test various gameplay prototypes, including those that eventually led to Bugbait, it became part of the actual level architecture.
Mission failure will result in permanent off-world assignment. Sacrifice. Coagulate. Plan.
Let's not allow it to come to that. I have done my best to convince our benefactors that you are the finest the species has to offer. The act of giving shelter to Gordon Freeman. This might cause other resistance members to think twice before harboring Dr. Freeman. Might cause them to question his allegiance, even prompt some to turn him out or turn him over to our cause. However, we cannot count on such developments. Dr. Freeman's reputation is such that other desperate renegades are likely to grant him a great deal of license in the spirit of spreading general chaos and terror. This brings me to the one note of disappointment I must echo from our benefactors. Obviously, I am not on the ground to closely command or second-guess the dedicated forces of the Overwatch. But this does not mean I can shirk responsibility. I have been
D2 Prison 05 start. With the player able to move a large number of objects, we often ran into challenges, especially given the limitations of 2003's CPUs. One limitation was that our AI navigation system wasn't aware of dynamic physics objects, like these metal beds. While our NPC movement system could detect and avoid physics objects while moving, they were essentially invisible during navigation queries for strategic planning before movement. This was primarily due to performance limitations. We couldn't afford anything more complex. We also faced design challenges without clear solutions, like how a soldier should respond if a player completely blocked a corridor with large physics objects. To address this, we gave NPCs additional strength to push physics objects around. We then mitigated the issue through level design, widening corridors and ensuring enough empty space to handle props landing anywhere within them. This setup is a high-risk one. The combination of soldiers hiding behind beds and antlions charging for melee attacks creates a good chance of awkward interactions between the NPC movement system and the beds.
Laundry. By the time the player reaches this level, known as Laundry, we're confident they're comfortable using bug bait to solve combat scenarios. So, we wanted to raise the stakes a bit by creating a scenario that encourages the player to get even more involved, combining bug bait with their full set of weapons.
Side Zombie. This poison zombie was always a highlight in playtests. Players so focused on Combine soldiers, antlions, and turrets hadn't seen a poison zombie in quite some time, so its sudden appearance in the dark often created a moment of shock.
Kitchen. It's a well-known custom among game developers that all video game kitchens must feature a gas explosion.
One-way drops. Players never know what's ahead of them, but they're familiar with what's behind them, so it's common for them to retreat to familiar ground when they encounter an enemy. If we've built an arena where we want the player to engage, especially for an enemy with specific geometry requirements, like the Antlion Guard, we need a way to prevent that retreat. A common solution is to require the player to enter the arena through a one-way drop, something you've likely noticed a few times already.